We want to thank all of our patrons. Y'all are the best.
Hello friends, back on Triteia. Today we're going to start unwiring the old switch panel, labeling where the wires go to, what they belong to. We're just going to do that with masking tape, kind of real loose, and then they'll get proper labels when we wire up the entire new switch panel with a P-touch machine. But today what we need to do is get all of this wiring moved out of the way. That way we can mount the structures for the switch panels in their place behind the chart table. Right now the wires are running behind where it needs to be, so it can't get back to the bulkhead. So we got to get all that moved. The only two things I'm gonna leave wired up is the shore power, which I'll need for saws or anything like that, and charging my batteries obviously, and the bilge pump. That stuff will get rewired at the very end. Like I'll switch the bilge pump over after the whole switch panel, the new switch panel is installed. So let's go ahead and get to this. Now here's my old switch panel. I'll show you guys a detailed shot of it. But when I got the boat, I pulled this down and removed all of the dangerous wiring that was in there. It was like 70s or 1970s, 1980s like lamp wire that was used throughout the entire boat. So I pulled out all the dangerous wire in the boat at that time. And it is kind of chaos back there because I knew that I was going to be wiring up a proper nav station. So I just did it the best I could with the temporary space that I have. And she's got the job done until now. So let's go ahead and go over everything that's on this panel. Okay, so on this old panel, the original stuff was this cool old switch. I love these labels. I'll probably take them off and save them, even though I can't imagine what I'd ever use them for, but they're so pretty. I just love the look of them. They're really neat. I could for sure probably put to use this forward and aft one somewhere. But so this old panel was original. This was the original battery switch, which is no longer hooked up. This was a plug for like a fan, and this AC panel was originally on here. Now this was a old voltmeter which I took out and installed this battery meter, which is, I think it's, yeah, so when you switch this up, then you see how much juice you got left. Pretty simple sort of battery monitor, not great. It also activates the voltage here so I can see what's coming in, whether I'm under motor or on shore power, to see if we're charging. I went ahead and added this bilge pump switch, which has an alarm, which I like a lot. And so that's like the original, I don't know that it was original, but the panel that was on the boat when I got it. This forward and aft, there was like, they had the batteries wired up in the bilge, and one was forward and one was aft, so this was switching back and forth between the two batteries at some point. And then the rest of it's just switches for different stuff. So let's go ahead and take this down and see what's behind it. There she is, very dusty and dirty. So we're going to take all of our hot leads that we're going to reuse and label those with masking tape and get all the wiring out of the way. A lot of this hardware in the background, like the bus bars and stuff, almost all of it's new I bought when I rewired this whole section. But once we get all the leads off and moved, then we can worry about taking off each of the pieces we want and kind of getting this thing out of our way. I am relocating the shore power to a much smarter location. So while that's in play, we're going to leave the shore power hooked up. The shore power goes from where the cord comes in to the battery charger, and then from the battery charger it goes back into the system and to the single AC plug I have on board I use for my power saws and all that stuff. So let's go ahead and get to labeling this stuff. First things first is we'll figure out which one goes to where. So this goes to our hot bus bar. That means that this side, the starboard side of the switches, is all going to go to the wires we need to label. Because all of this just goes to a hot bus, which supplies the current to it, or the electricity to it, rather. And again, this masking tape is just temporary. We're going to do proper P-touch on everything. This is actually my macerator pump. Definitely need that one. I'm actually going to go ahead and unhook the shore power. I think seems like the smart thing to do. So that's the first one done. And actually, I'm going to wait on that one. So I'm just going to do the hots for a second. The rest of these are just pull-offs, so they'll be easier. Now when we rewire this, it's all going to be these ring terminals, so there's no way it can ever come off when it's on the back of the panel. Our next one is the instruments panel, which sends juice to our compass, or our depth sounder, and I don't remember what else actually. The compass has its own compass light on a different switch because I didn't want it running during the day when I needed my depth sounder on. So that's our instruments. And these aren't hot because this is the hot side, so it doesn't matter if they just hang out. Next up is our water pump for our water pressure. And lastly, and then the last one is automatic, which is our autopilot, our Raymarine. I call it HAL 2000. So it just sends the power to the plug in the cockpit that we hook our tiller pilot up to. Alright, one side's done. Let's go ahead and do this other side, and then we can deal with the hot leads. This top one, actually I have no idea where that goes. Oh, I think the top one's the anchor light. I think the top one is the compass light. Seems like it's running up there. So we'll find out. We're going to label it that, and then we'll double check it. Next up, our cabin lights. Very important one, obviously. And then the last two we got, oh, this one came loose here. I don't know what that one is. We'll see. Last two is the anchor light. And finally, we got our running lights, which is very important, obviously. Okay. All of those switches are done. It'd be nice to have this stuff all set up in a beautiful way with my new switch panel, I'll tell you. I've learned from experience that these damn bolts right here love to find their way to the bilge. So, actually there's some missing because that's what's happened in the past. So you got to be careful and cautious when you're undoing them. So we can go ahead and get this off. I'm going to save these little lengths because I can probably reuse them. This is all new wire, as I said. Let's go ahead and get this one out. Okay, so now I have everything unhooked from the panel that we need to move out of the way. Like I mentioned, I unhooked everything and then I re-hooked up the bilge pump, and I'm probably going to wire in one cabin light in case it starts getting dark and I haven't gotten things wired up. So all that'll be remaining on the old switch panel is the shore power, the bilge pump, and one cabin light. Everything else can start coming off of this panel, and I can go ahead and move all of my loose wires that we labeled out of the way so that we can get our aft panel in place and secured so we can start the process of wiring it all up. So we got all our wires cleared up. They were in the way. Now the bulkhead is free and ready for us to get this structure in. I pulled a lot of the slack in different directions to get it all tightened up back here. There's like a bunch of small holes that they feed through here. I'm actually going to pull everything out of all of these holes, make a larger hole that I can put a gasket in. That way, like, the wiring loom can come through and there's no chance of chafe, and this is just a poor way to go about it. I drilled out my new battery switch, so we'll be moving the battery switch up here so it's above this panel, easy to reach back to. You don't really touch it much, so it's fine for it to be there, but here it's in the wrong spot now that we're putting in our new panels. So that's on the list to be done with this whole project. Right now it's going to be the moment of truth. We're going to put in these two panels, set them in, clip on the faces, and make sure that this opens. I did have to take this off and shorten the desktop part by 2.5 inches to make my new panels actually fit, the new design I came up with. So kind of never ends. It's like dominoes, you know, one thing leads to another, leads to another. So in theory, this is going to fit perfect. I measured it 1,000 times and I tested it before, but we're going to go ahead and set it up for real where it's going to live and see how it looks and see how it works. This is exciting for me because this is the first time I've seen it flush against the aft bulkhead. We're going to go ahead and set in our teak trim. It's going to go here, telling us what we really got to work with. So there she is. Now let's get our other panel in and see where it falls. That's what we're looking at. It's a little uneven here for some reason. Might be able to just sand something down. I want that to sit more flush, but now the way I designed these panels, they have these I can't remember the exact name. They're like pocket hinges or something, but it's so that there can be a flat, you know, completely flat door, or in our case panel, and the hinge is hidden inside, and then it kind of lifts it up and leans it out, so that buys me space. I didn't have to put a piano hinge at the bottom and account for that. I wanted to get as much space out of this as I could. The other nice thing is they have these releases, so you can set the panel in place and clip it in, and then it's ready to go. But you can also unclip it and remove it, so that when you're trying to do all this, you're not fighting the door and the instruments you've already installed and risk damaging anything. That's how I went about it. And we'll see how it works out. I think it's going to be good though. So now the moment of truth. Let's hook up our actual panels and see what kind of clearance we have here. We'll do our port panel first. Just have part of this old moving pad I'm going to sit down as a pad so it doesn't damage anything, doesn't mar my chart table. Okay, so that one's in place. Get this folded up. Alright, so there she is. Let's take a look at her. She looks pretty. Ooh boy, that's close, but it works. So I gotta make sure that's all the way buttoned up. Doesn't hit though. Boy, I didn't give myself any room to play around, I'll tell you that. So that works. And I know this one clears. So there it is. I have the elbow latches that I'm going to be putting in today. I'll drill a little hole here and the elbow latch will hold this while you're underway. And then we have our iPad's going to go here. We'll look at all that after everything's installed. But there she is. Look at that. Oh man, long time coming to this point. So we can go ahead and get our panel installed. Both the housings for these panels. I'm going to pull the panels back off, put them in the V-berth, get these all screwed in where they want to be, and then we can go from there. This hole here is for our build switch. So as soon as we get everything in place, I can move the build switch over. And then these three are for our little USB stuff we just pulled off of that other panel. So they're going to go like that. Alright, time to get to securing this down. Alright, she's all screwed in place. And since I'm the superstitious type, we're going to go ahead and put the panels back on to make sure that it all still is where it's supposed to be. And then once we've confirmed that, we'll pull them back off and get to mounting the stuff that's going to go on the bulkheads.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a like, subscribe, and leave us a comment. It helps us a lot.
Thanks again to all of our patrons. Your contributions help us get the boat ready for big things.
Until next time.